Everything that I have needed to do before my shoulder surgery, I've pretty much got done now. My firewood is all put up for the winter. My solar batteries are set, the 3 additional ones. I still have to hook them up, but I can do that one-handed if need be. But the one other thing that kind of is a bonus sort of thing that I want to try to get done yet, and I should be able to do that pretty easily, I'm still a month away from my surgery, is to build a workbench across the entire backside here of the carport. And what that'll do for me is it'll allow me to set up my chop saw anywhere on the bench and be able to cut long things pretty easily. It'll also give me a place where, being protected now from the weather, I can set up, if I need to, my table saw, which is a heavy son of a gun. It weighs close to 1,000 pounds, but my tractor will handle it, get it out of storage and brought in here for a little while. I can cover it at night and such, and be able to run that to where my plywood, if I'm cutting anything wide, will run just right off the end here. Then in the center, where I've poured this slab, I'm going to put in a little cabinet, and everything will be continuous. The bench will be continuous all the way across. I'll surface it with some red cedar that I've got. I haven't got it cut yet, but that's what I'll surface it with. Then in this cabinet, I'll have a couple doors in the front here that I can get in and out of it. That way I can put my little chop saw in there, not have to carry it in and out every time I'm using it. Have some room for additional storage. I'll bring up this backside to protect this end from the weather, and I'll probably protect it by putting up about a 6-foot high wall, 6.5 feet, something like that, and maybe a little bit of a sloping roof on it, and that'll only extend maybe 1.5 to 2 feet. So I don't have to do a whole bunch of additional bracing, and I'll put a light in that. And then the conduit that you saw me run earlier start running. I'll go ahead and finish that. I'll bring it down the post and across the workbench, and then bring it up here and put in a switch for the overhead light here, a 120 volt outlet, and a 240 volt outlet to run my table saw. I think it should all be pretty darn cool when it's done. I have all the pieces cut and fit. Holes are drilled to bolt everything down. These boards that I'm using are actually leftover, treated lumber leftover from when I built the barn, and so that was 3 years ago. They've sat inside, but they've sat inside under a pretty leaky roof, so they've gotten wet and dry and wet and dry. And I suspect some of the treatment has leached out of them, so I'm going to go ahead and give them another coat of treatment, and then probably let them to dry until tomorrow to put them down. And then what I'll do is I'll run a bead of caulk all the way around, set the boards. I will put a piece of treated plywood over the top of that, and then I'll build up everything from there. Thinking about this a little bit last night, I've changed my mind about how I'm going to waterproof this base. I've got some sill seal left over from doing the barn, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'll set my base plates, and then before I put plywood over the top of it, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bend some flashing and dig down besides this concrete foundation and get it to where the water will run below this and not hopefully get in underneath the base of this thing. I'll go get some flashing bent, come back and I'll dig out these edges and put that in. All the flashing is bent and installed. I've got a couple inches that I've laid out on top of the 2x4 sleepers. Then I'm down 4 inches on these 3 sides, and that outside edge I'm down about 8 inches with the flashing. So should have everything there pretty well protected to where water isn't going to get in underneath there. And I've got everything cut tight enough that I'm pretty sure insects won't get in there either. So I'll go ahead and set that piece of plywood over the top of it, and we'll be done with that part. And I use that super secret recipe of mine for sealing this, which is actually the same thing that I use for end sealer on my logs. Now the reason for this piece of aluminum sticking up is that I'm going to run a couple diagonal braces that will go from here over to the post, and then that gives me a little bit of additional diagonal bracing on the structure too. And when I planned this, I drilled the holes down too doggone low. I'm going to have to re-drill those up a little bit higher, and I'll put 1 bolt through each brace and then screw it into this platform here too. It sure isn't going to hurt. The past week and a half has been more like January than it has November here in northwest Arkansas. So I've actually spent a lot more time working with the crock pot inside than what I have with any power tools outside. Yesterday was a fairly decent day, and I went ahead and built this wall that'll be the back wall of the area that I'll light, and I'll put power in here and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a good working station. And then there'll be a 2-foot bench that goes all the way across from end to end. Now what this does is it gives me a lot of rigidity in that direction. And I was originally thinking that I would run a diagonal brace from each post down to this plate that I put in the bottom. But I really don't need to do that because this is built with, I've got 3/4 inch treated plywood on the back side here, so it gives it a ton of rigidity this way, but really nothing this way. That will be taken up by putting a plywood sidewall here, a plywood sidewall here that'll end up being the cabinet, and also decking all the way across that will give this the rigidity it needs. The roof isn't going to have an awful lot of support here, but it really doesn't need much because we're sort of in underneath the main roof of the building. So it might get a little light snow on it or something like that. Rain, of course, will run right off. So that doesn't need a lot of support, and I'll probably bring it out, I don't know, maybe 18 inches or something like that. Just enough to sort of protect a work surface here. When I was doing the clear roof over what is essentially another little carport area back there by my solar panels, I had to rip several 2x2s out of 2x4s, and this piece was left over. So I think in order to have as much cabinet area as possible, I'm going to go ahead and frame these 2 walls out of this 2x2. Well, this is my day's worth of progress. The temperature got up into the mid-30s today, which isn't great, but it isn't horrible either. Everything now is really solid in every direction, which is actually just up what I wanted to accomplish for today. I can start working on this top next, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and block in between them to keep a 24-inch wide overall width for my workbench, but really gives me a sense of where things are going to be now, and I feel pretty good about it. So now the next, actually we got a cold front coming in tonight, and that's supposed to last for about 4 days. If it gets cold enough that I have to have gloves on to work, I probably won't be doing much. I'm just not good at carpentry work with gloves on, especially if it has to look good in the end. And this I do want to look pretty good since I'll be using it quite a bit. I will see you back here in a few days, I suppose. If it gets warm enough that I can work a little bit in the next couple days, I'll do it. And if not, I'll continue with my work of the crock pot. I'm now finished with the lumber part of the framing on this. I need to go buy some plywood, but while I've got good access to everything, the next product of this project will be putting in electrical conduit. Let's take a closer look at what I did for framing. So far as the roof portion there, right now I've got a 6-inch structural screw going into each one of the vertical pieces, and it actually is pretty firm just the way it is. I've got to buy some longer ones that I will put right beside those, and then I think I'll put truss plates on the inner 2x4s, and that really should have a pretty firm roof. It's not something you're going to walk on, but it's something that should hold a little bit of snow that it gets. And then I will end up having a light projecting down from there to the work area here below. What I did here was to frame 2x4s at every 16 inches. On the two ends, I ended up putting a 45-degree diagonal brace. I did the same thing on the other end. And I should have a pretty firm surface all the way across. I will end up putting in 1/2-inch treated plywood over the top of this, and I'll probably put urethane or something like that to help to treat and preserve that and keep it waterproof. I would like to use my wax mixture that I made myself, but I don't think I'll do that. And the reason for that is I'm going to want to both screw and glue the cedar that I'll use on top of this all, and glue won't stick to the mixture that I made because it's a wax base. Again, same type of framing down on this end. I think this should support more than enough so far as what I'll ever do. Now right in the middle, I've got a cutout here. Maybe a little hard to figure out what it's for, and I'll explain that in another episode. I think I'll go ahead and end this episode here just because there are a few things that I would like to get done with two hands while I've still got the use of both of them. So I'm not sure when I'll get back to this, but as soon as I do, we'll have another episode here. Thanks for being with me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.